Our gospel reading for this morning comes from the 18th chapter of John's gospel. In understanding John's gospel, it's important to remember a few things or be aware of a few things. John is a Jewish Christian, and his congregation, the people to whom this gospel is originally written, are Jewish Christians worshiping in the synagogue. They do not want to give up on their Judaism. They do not want to let go of that. In fact, the big crisis facing John and his congregation is that some of the synagogues have begun to put Christians out, say, hey, stop with this Jesus business, or you can't worship here. And some of these Christians have decided to go secret with their faith, to not express their Christian faith. John writes to them asking them to hold fast to their confession of Jesus. That's why he's so big on that. It also means that when John uses the term Jews, which we will hear in our passage, he uses it in a very special way. He does not use it to describe people who happen to be Jewish by faith. He uses the term to describe those leaders of Judaism who seek to get in the way of what God is doing in Jesus. The ones who are throwing these other Jews out of the synagogue. And so he means it not to be speaking of Jews in general, but in a very specific way. So now, as we listen to this, and as you will hear in this passage, in typical fashion of John, Jesus is a very divine figure, not quite like you see him in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Jesus is always in control in John. Listen now for what these words may say to us, what the Spirit may speak to us as we hear these words of Scripture. We're in the midst of Jesus' trial. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the King of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I?" And actually, by John's reasoning, yes, he is. "Your own nation and the chief priest has handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. What is truth? That's Pilate's answer when Jesus says, "For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." And so Pilate cuts off Jesus' attempt to connect with Pilate the man, to get behind the persona, to the person Pilate. On the surface, Pilate would seem to be the most powerful man in all Jerusalem, in all of Palestine. He is the governor of the region, the Roman governor. He has the authority and power of the Roman Empire behind him. He has the might of the Roman army at his beck and call. He has the power of life and death over Jesus and over countless other people. But as John's gospel narrates this trial scene to us, Pilate appears to be the one on trial. Pilate finds himself a pawn, caught up in a situation over which he has no control. When John's Gospel relates Pilate's trial before Jesus, he presents Pilate as a tragic and even comic figure. In the portions of the reading we didn't see, amidst all the trappings of authority that Pilate had, he must run back and forth between Jesus inside and the Jewish authorities who are waiting outside. And as the scene continues to unfold, Pilate grows more and more frightened, and he realizes more and more that he is trapped and has no way out. So much for all that power. In the brief portion of the story of the trial that we heard in our reading today, Jesus answers Pilate's questions with questions of his own, or with answers that seek to reshape the conversation in a manner that's reminiscent of Jesus' conversations with Nicodemus and with the Samaritan woman at the well. He seeks to engage Pilate and draw him out into a new understanding. Even at his own trial, Jesus ministers to Pilate, invites him to grow, to escape those things that have trapped him, and to step into the truth. But it is more than Pilate can do. It is way too costly for Pilate to accept Jesus' invitation. I would think that most modern-day politicians can fully appreciate Pilate's predicament. I think most of us are aware of how politicians find themselves feeling trapped, unable to actually say what they think or believe. I mean, all these increasingly absurd statements about Syrian refugees and Muslims, are those really heartfelt, well-reasoned responses? Or are they simply pandering? Are they simply saying things that they think they have to say, that they must say? Are they trapped, just like Pilate is? People regularly trash politicians because of the way they dance around the truth, massage the truth, spin the truth. But there is a price to pay if they don't. Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, most all discover at some point that a lot of their control and power is an illusion. They are indeed trapped. There are many things they must say and must do. There are many things they cannot. But there's no need to pick on politicians. Most all of us spend a fair amount of time behind masks, living from a persona. Perhaps we're not so blatant about ours as Pilate or some politicians, but I certainly have ways in which I find myself trapped, like Pilate, when I do not really want to live in ways that step outside of my fears. As a pastor, there's a certain level of assumptions and expectations about who I am and how I will act. Some of those assumptions are ones my own that I've acquired over the years from God knows where. Some of them are assumptions and expectations that others have of me. Much like Pilate, though, I can find myself caught in between assumptions and expectations, scurrying around, trying to live into them, afraid or unable to step into the truth. Today, on Christ the King Sunday, we who are Christians proclaim boldly that Christ alone rules our lives. Every other allegiance, every other loyalty is secondary to following Jesus. Or so we say. Being a Presbyterian pastor pays me a decent salary. It gives me health care, and it provides me with a defined benefits pension. Those things almost don't exist in the world anymore, and I've got one. And I'm not about to put that in danger. Being a pastor of a thriving congregation with lots of successful programs presumes that I'm a savvy, skilled leader who knows how to make those programs thrive even more. I dare not let on that I don't know what I'm doing. And in almost all congregations, there are people who assume and expect that the pastor has faith and prayer and spirituality all figured out. I dare not share all of my faith struggles, those times when I long for God's voice, for even a wisp of the Spirit, but sense nothing. When I first became pastor here at Falls Church, I grew worried that I had made a mistake. I was not comfortable in the DC culture. I worried I was not a good fit for the congregation. I missed my former congregation terribly. I dared not speak this out loud, but the truth has its way. As my attempts to project strength and certainty, to conceal my fears, often left me acting as foolishly as Pilate does, and no doubt it poisoned a few interactions with some of you. Like Pilate, I was trapped by my expectations, by my fears. Jesus surely invited me repeatedly to step into the truth, to quit pretending. But I must have had my own way of deflecting his invitation. I must have had my own version of what is truth. And surely it's not just me. Surely it's not just pastors and politicians. Surely all of us, parent and child, student, teacher, employer, employee, at times find ourselves trapped by fears and worries and anxieties, trapped by assumptions and expectations. To varying degrees also, we find that the power and control we think we have is an illusion. As he does with Pilate, Jesus keeps saying to us, "Where'd you get all this? Don't you want to step into the truth? Won't you let me help you?" Oh, but the truth can be scary. It can tell us that we're on the wrong track, that we've somehow gotten off base. It can sometimes tell us that our politics or our theology or the way we do church or the way that we construct our faith or the things that we think will make us happy are not right. For us, just as Jesus was for Pilate and for his own religious institutions, the truth can be a frightening thing. But Jesus keeps insisting, "For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Jesus' invitation into the truth is born of God's grace and of God's love. But Jesus says plenty of things that scare me. Jesus questions my love of money and things. Jesus is forever hanging out with the wrong sort of unimpressive people. People from the margins, people who don't really fit in polite society, who would not be at all comfortable in a nice, respectable church congregation. Jesus asked me to risk myself for people such as those. And Jesus even says I'm supposed to love those people I fear the most, my enemies, whoever they might be. But see, I want to be impressive and a success and upstanding and respectable. I want to make it and be comfortable. I want to be in control. Maybe it would be a good idea to keep Jesus at arm's length. Maybe I should just keep wearing that mask. Funny thing, though, our masks rarely fool people for very long. The reason so many folks take dim view of politicians is it's so obvious the way many of them are trapped and can't speak the truth. My own attempts to be the religious expert with all the answers who knows exactly what we can do only makes my own foibles more obvious. And when churches engage in hypocrisy, very often everyone can see it, except maybe those churches. And our masks can't possibly fool God. We may imagine that if we dress up nice and act all respectable and have the right kind of music and the right kind of worship and liberated, enlightened understanding of the Bible, that makes us impressive and makes God stand up and notice that we've really got it all together. But I suspect we're fooling ourselves every much as Pilate did. Another funny thing, the times when I have felt most free and most at peace are those times when I've quit pretending and let Jesus be in charge. Yes, Jesus sometimes leads into some scary places. But it turns out Jesus knows where he's going a whole lot better than I usually do. And the king said, "Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." I'm trying, Jesus. I'm trying. All praise and glory to the one who comes, who is the truth and the way and the life. All praise and glory to our King.